Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Roundtable Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about everything happening on the feeds, even when there aren't any feeds. So we're here to you this Sunday to talk about the lack of feeds, essentially. I'm your host, Taryn Armstrong, and I'm here with Brent. How you doing, Brent?
We're here to talk about me and my feelings.
Yes.
And my desires.
No alliterations today because there's no feeds, which means you don't get alliterations. I'm also here with Alex Kidwell. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good. Yeah, it's fine. Keep it casual because there's really not a whole lot going on for us to talk about here.
Yeah, I've been podcasting about Team Ninja Warrior with Lita, and we refer to those as our casual recaps because I go in unprepared, and this is probably going to be a little bit like that. So we are here live on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, as we always are, to talk about what's been happening on the feeds. We have the chat room open on RHAP-ups.com, and you can send in questions at Armstrong Taryn to me on Twitter at Armstrong Taryn. So let's get into this, these feeds, these, beeping. Is there beeping? What's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing somebody's alerts somewhere. I don't know what that is.
Alerts?
I'm not.
Yeah, you know, like notification noises every now and again.
Okay.
Someone sounds very popular. I'm not sure what it is, though.
It is not me. I will say that, Taryn, your mic kind of went in and out quite a bit. Right when you was perfect, and then all of a sudden when you started it, because you asked about your mic in the pre-show, so it maybe there's something going on that side. I don't know. Hell.
Well,
I don't see any notifications on my end, so it's not me. I'll turn everything off.
they're saying it's the chat room.
I feel like maybe that's a joke, though. It's coming from inside the chat room.
Well, I know the chat does like make noises when things happen if you have the setting in a certain way. So,
I don't hear anything. So, is that indicative that it's on my end?
Well, I'm not hearing anything either. So maybe it's
okay. Good. Okay, good. Alex, it's all your fault.
Chat room, and maybe it'll go away.
Okay. Well, let us know, chat room. We are sorry about the beeping and the noises. We'll hopefully get this fixed. Okay, so let's talk about the feeds. Let us know if this stuff is still happening.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. So basically what's happening is we had an HOH competition. It ended at the end of the last episode, but we did talk about it at our live show in Toronto. That was a lot of fun. And we talked about how I was the new HOH, but somehow Dimitri got in the way and managed to win it instead. And he was obviously going to put up, Kevin and Karen, and it's all going to come down to this veto. So tell me about this veto, Brent.
Okay, I'll tell you about the veto. Kevin wins again. That's what happens with the veto. And apparently there isn't a lot of information because the feeds were off for the majority of the time. And then even when they did come back on, the house guests were so bone tired by then that they were sleeping. Kevin even commented that Dimitri might have been at a disadvantage because he went like at 4 a.m. in the morning for it must have been a timed sort of Final Four veto. I think the rumor is that Dimitri couldn't figure out something to do with Dre. So Dre eventually was his downfall one way or the other, or at least Ika's downfall, because obviously Dimitri's HOH. Kevin can't get him out. He's going to take the next best option, most probably, and that is to get Ika out of the house.
Ika, oh man. How are you feeling about this, Brent? I know you were the biggest Ika fan of them all, I believe.
I will say that, it's so funny because going into the Final Four, I even said to Arissa when we were up in Canada, and she was my best friend. I just want to let everybody know, Final Two's still on, that I was totally fine with any one of these people winning because, Kevin winning and Dimitri's winning and Ika winning. I never really considered the possibility of Karen winning, but even if she pulled out a what the F kind of win, I was like totally fine with that. And then all of a sudden, when Kevin won the veto and Ika was out of the game, in my mind anyway, she's not out yet, but I'm 99.9% sure that Kevin's going to evict her, although we'll talk about the 0.1%. It really dawned on me how much this season is Ika's season. It's sort of like how we think of BB14 as being Dan's season. even though he's not the winner of that season. Ika made this season front, back, and sideways. I mean, this season has been such a joy to cover because she managed to give us her full Ika-ness and still make it to the Final Four. I mean, it's not easy for a reality contestant to confront their past demons, look at them, and I'm sure she looked at herself and said, "Hey, I gotta tone it down a little bit. I gotta, keep my realness under control. I can't be snatching so many edges." And yet she came in and 6 days in, she was all of the Ika that we could handle, and then some. So I am sad, and it also. I also became very uninterested in this season all of a sudden. Now, all of the strategy is completely out the window at this point. There's not even any real jury strategy to talk about at this point in the season. You and I and Alex and obviously Melissa's just joined us, but we talk about who could vote for who in what scenario, and there's really nothing to talk about here because if Kevin evicts Ika, as he most assuredly will, then Demetrius and Kevin will both go to the final three with Karen. They will both win parts 1 and parts 2, and they will both go against each other in part 3, and they will not take each other to the end of the game. So either Demetrius is going to win or Kevin's going to win. The jury's mind's already made up between the two, whatever finalist pairing there is. And it just, again, I'm not trying to be a downer on a podcast, but with Ika, there were so many possibilities. But now it's just a comp beast versus a comp beast in the final 2, or at least in the final 3, part 3 of the HOH competition. And I'm a little bit bummed. I really am. I said that I would be happy with any one of those people winning. And I have to say that I'm sure once some time passes, I will be fine with a Kevin win or a Demetrius win, but I'm not as into it as I thought I would be.
So what you're saying is that it's all coming down to competitions, and that's a little bit disappointing for you?
I mean, there's an element that is sort of respectful of it, and I know you're trying to make a joke there. And if Ika wasn't going out of the game, I would be here for your jokes. I really would be, but I'm annoyed right now, so I'm not here for it. It's just that I'm here. I can respect what they've both done. I think Kevin has isn't it like Kevin has 6 competition wins and Dimitri has 7 competition wins?
That's correct.
So, Kevin could theoretically win more if he wins the final HOH. That would give him 7. I'm respectful of what they've achieved. It's amazing that Demetrius has won 5 HOHs. On the other hand, I would like to pat myself on the back because I'm not going to get an opportunity to do that at any point in this podcast and tell you guys that this is why I told you guys when you were breaking down who had the advantage. You said, "Oh, I put Demetrius up here and put Kevin down here with Ika and Dylan." I was like, "Are we talking the same language here?" Like, I know what competitions are coming. All of them are in Kevin Martin's wheelhouse. I mean, and by wheelhouse, I mean like right smack dab in the middle of it. Unless they added an element of luck, he was always going to win Final 5 veto, Final 4 veto. I mean, he would have won that Final 4 HOH if he could have competed. I am like, in my mind at this point, he's already won because I went back and watched all of the questions that they've asked for part 3 ever since season 2 started, and they went to a more trivia-based format. He's already asked himself all of these types of questions. He knows what questions to ask himself. That's the advantage of being a vet. He knows to think of things like, how many times has the nominee competed in that week's veto competition? How many times has the person evicted been nominated previously? Things like weird questions like that Big Brother likes to ask that are not so straightforward that Dimitri isn't even really thinking of. So yeah. I think Kevin has won the game.
Yeah, and Kevin did release a video that we can talk about to this effect. But first, I want to get Alex's take. Do you think this is Ika's season? How do you feel about that?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think BB14 is Dan's season, though. I don't put one face on a season. I think a season is bigger than one individual. I've never really seen it that way. So yeah, I don't see that at all. I think this is a season of vets versus newbies, and the vets tried their best to destroy themselves. but despite their best efforts, they won all the comps. As me and Taryn were figuring out before the show, no one's won a competition since day 45 when William won a veto.
Yeah.
It's the last time anyone not named Demetrius or Kevin has won a competition. So, I mean, those two down the stretch have really dominated. And yeah, I mean, I've seen like there's a lot out there. Like someone wrote a whole dissertation about how Kevin doesn't deserve to win this game, which is funny because if Kevin gets the final two with Karen, it doesn't matter how deserving you think he is. He's going to win this game.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think, it's just, this has been a fun season because you can look at all four of these people and point to huge, drastic, glaring errors they made along the way that really should have bit them in the ass. All of them played really messy, really sloppy, pretty bad games, but they all got here despite themselves. And yeah, I mean, I think anyone emerging as a winner this season would have had huge things you could point to as flaws, as missteps. Ika needed Demetrius to bail her out a few times. Demetrius needed to bail Demetrius out a few times. Kevin needed to bail Kevin out many, many times. And Karen, we don't even know what the hell. Karen, just despite everything she's ever tried to do in this game, is still here. So it really is, it's been something. It's been a hell of a ride. And yeah, it's, again, it sounds like this veto that Kevin won was, to quote Ika, right up his alley again, which means it was something you really needed to study for. And it's hard for me to not see Kevin pulling this out the way things have been going, the way he's been winning these kinds of, competitions. And, again, you brought up that video that that's been posted that he recorded while he was in sequester. And I think that was pretty, there's not a lot there. Obviously it's recorded back in March, but I thought a couple of things were pretty illuminating. First, like he really was focusing on those questions. He was studying all past questions from past seasons, which is really, really smart. Something that I might not even thought of to do, but is really, really, you should know what the average over under is, and you should know what kinds of social related questions before or after type stuff to expect, because they do seem to pop back up time and time again. And then on top of that, it really seemed like he was in good headspace coming into this game, which is something like I would have guessed, but you can't know for sure, where he really didn't seem like he needed to win. He seemed like he had put himself in a place where he's like, if I go out first, that really sucks, but I'm a winner just being like one of the first people asked back to Big Brother Canada. It reminded me of Jeremy Collins, where it's like, this is the mindset you need to have if you're going to come into one of these games and find success. I think it's a big part of why he's able to be successful in these competitions is he's calm. He's not letting everything ride on the success of his Big Brother game. He knows he has a career to come back to, and he's happy about that. And I think it's a big difference between his game this time and his game last time, where he expected to win. I think it makes all the difference. I mean, I go back to anytime I play poker with money I can't afford to lose, I'm way too tight and I end up losing. You play differently. And as a result, you play, you don't take risks you should, or, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying he's played an immaculate game, but here he is at the end poised to win. So you got to give it up to him.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll agree with parts of that. If Kevin wins the game, obviously he deserves to win the game. And deserves doesn't even matter, because if he gets to the final two with Karen, he's going to win the game, and there's nothing I can say about it. I think, it's for the people who are the Kevin haters, and I'm not a Kevin hater, just to be clear on where I stand. I adore Kevin. I think he's a really sweet guy. He's a lovely human being. He's very funny on Twitter. He is a true fan of Big Brother. That warms my heart. But my heart has always been with Jamaica, and it's hard for me to let that go because I feel like they ruled this season. I was having, visions of Demetrius and Ika in the final two, and that would have just been great. I would have loved it because they actually would have taken each other to the final two. I think it wouldn't have been a situation like John and Netta where they were going to cut each other. And it would have been a giant FU to the jury. Like, you try to get us out and we're both here and you got to pick one of us. And I would have lived for it. But we rarely get exactly what we want to Big Brother, unless it's like Big Brother 13 and you're me. So this is what we're going to get. We're going to get a Comp Beast win. And I don't know. The other thing about Kevin is that I don't think he's a very fun contestant. And again, I think he's a lovely human being and someone I would like to hang out with in real life, but he's not very fun as far as reality TV goes. He doesn't have any emotions. We joked on this podcast about the fact that you can't make Kevin mad. That's a problem on a show like Big Brother. I'm sorry, it is. It pisses me off that he doesn't get mad. And you can say, and I'm sure you both are very proud of him, that he doesn't get mad, and that, oh wow, isn't that amazing that he in the face of somebody yelling at him, he has the wherewithal to make sure that he doesn't screw up his strategy and doesn't get mad. He doesn't get flustered. But I like flawed people. It's fun to watch them, and I don't like Kevin running circles around these people at the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there are plenty of people that get mad. There are very few people that can respond in the way that Kevin does. And, I don't think Kevin is a great player, but I do think he makes for a compelling character. And I think the division in the fan base right now, in terms of people who are like, yes, for Kevin and screw this with Kevin, is probably indicative of that. Ultimately, what I think this season comes down to, the story of it is, it has to be about these competitions, right? Because we're seeing records being broken left and right. The amount of competition wins in both Dimitri and Kevin are unprecedented. And if Kevin does pull this off, being immune from Final 8, or if Dimitri pulls it off and takes a 6th HOH win, like either way, this is really unprecedented and really, record breaking, and we might have to start looking at the game of Big Brother, or at least the game of Big Brother Canada, and start saying, maybe there is more importance we should be putting on competitions. Yes. Because if they are this predictable, where Kevin can take this video, where he made this video and he talked about, I have studied every single question from every single competition Big Brother Canada has ever asked. They tend to ask the same kinds of questions. So I'm going to memorize those and prepare for those kinds of questions moving forward, so that when they come up, I'm able to do it. And this is him calling him shot from pre-game, saying, I'm preparing for these exact kind of competitions, and he's winning these exact kinds of competitions. So the variance here is being incredibly limited to a point where we're saying, yeah, Kevin has won the last 4 competitions that he's played. He's won the last 5 out of 6 competitions that he's played. And we've got somebody like Dimitri, who maybe didn't prepare for them, but is clearly very good at them, also having won a significant amount of competition, 7 total to Kevin's 6. And as Alex mentioned, nobody has won any competition other than Kevin and Dimitri since William won the veto, and that was under Dimitri's HOH reign.
More than 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So it's like, I think either Big Brother Canada is going to have to start changing up these end game competitions, or we have to start saying, look, this is a huge part of your game. You can be as socially great as you want, but if you're not good at these competitions, if you're not preparing for them, then that's a huge flaw in your game. Whereas before, it was probably a much smaller flaw in your game. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting conversation. I mean, we've always maintained that, comps are kind of crapshoots, and it's about certainly I have, that it's about, having a good enough social game where you can be positioned properly no matter who wins them, because they seem so random. But, there's certainly been their fair share of comps that were kind of that way. I mean, obviously Kevin winning that thing during the triple eviction, or the clown shoe type of competition, there's a lot of variance there. There's a lot of variance with, things like, like the soccer ball kicking thing that they did earlier. But down the stretch, it really has been a lot of things that are pretty specified in their skill sets: endurance, strength and speed, and memory, and memorization and knowledge of events in the game. I mean, that really seems to be, you can kind of, at least with Big Brother Canada, we're not seeing the Aaron Grease giant roulette wheel. You know what I mean? Like there's certain elements of just chanciness with BBUS competitions, consistently, I feel like, that we haven't seen down the stretch in the most important part of this season of Big Brother Canada. So it does. I mean, it makes me want to reevaluate how important something like Kevin did, which is studying every comp you possibly can and the possible outcomes for it. Like, that really seems to be more and more viable. You look at the recent winners of this game, Kevin, I mean, if he wins, assuming that Kevin or Dimitri, whichever one of them wins, won a ton of comps to get there. And we have to look at their competitions as a big piece of why. The Pax brothers, it was the same thing. And John really won a ton of competitions as well. So did Jillian. I mean, and Sarah down the stretch as well. I mean, it really does seem like, granted, we talk about sample size. It's only 5 seasons. But man, I mean, all of them, they've needed the competitions down the stretch. And it does seem like the people who were positioned well, a triple takes them out. They can't win to save themselves. Some variance comes along where if you can't win to save yourself, if you don't have that presence of mind and that ability to stay calm and get the job done, that seems to be a huge factor now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't love it, but
yeah,
I'm just...
I mean, I'll go on record and say that I don't hate it. Because I feel like it's at least something that you can prepare for. It keeps the game at least somewhat consistent. Now, they may throw a curveball here. I mean, we're all just assuming that they're going to do things the way that they've done them in the past, but they haven't always done them this way in the past. I don't know that Final 3 is definitely going to be trivia based on the jury members in the house. Like I was watching the Kelsey versus Philippe part 3 last night, and like I said, it was like, who dropped their sword last, or which jury member dropped their sword last in blankety blank competition. Who was a have not 4 times? Was it A or B? Things like this. I at least you can prepare for something like that. I'm just sort of bummed that Kevin is so much more aware of those types of questions than Demetrius is, because I really feel like he's going to be at a disadvantage going into part 3. That's assuming they both make part 3. That's assuming that Ike is evicted, and I feel like that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is too, like every single, it's not even just that Kevin is a vet, because Kevin being a vet doesn't help him study for these questions. It was the fact that he did all the research, he put the work into it, and anybody is capable of doing that. If Dimitri had put the work into it beforehand and studied as much as Kevin, then we might be seeing Dimitri have more of a shot at beating Kevin here. But I think as bad as Kevin's game has been in the house, you have to look at this level of preparedness and say that's a huge thing, that's positive for his game. And if it's what gets him the win, then we do have to start looking at that as like, wow, that's something really good that he did, that, honestly he might be a pioneer in terms of like, people need to start doing this moving forward, because it's a huge asset.
Well, let me ask you this question though. Do you think it's a good idea that they released that video before part 3 has taken place? Because I feel like that's not necessarily a great idea, and I understand where they're coming from, but it depends on where you're coming from. I mean, if you feel like that all of the questions for part 3 are already written, then there's something to talk about here. On the other hand, if you do kind of feel like that, Monday, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, they, write the questions, because okay, we got to write the questions, and this is what happened, and because obviously all of the events in the house haven't finished until like yesterday. So there's things that they need to, things that they can write questions about. What I'm getting at is they could, that stuff's going to make its way onto the internet. People are going to see it. People are going to hear about it at least. And if you hear something, you're not going to want to ask a question about it. You're just not. You're going to want to ask a different question, because people already know. It's like if you're a teacher and you're writing a test and you see the answers out on the internet. You're like, I'm going to change the test. I don't like the fact that my answers are already out on the internet. So I don't know that was a good call. But on the other hand, I've heard from a few people in production that, the competitions are done 100% ahead of time. I will say that I don't know if that really answers my question about, are all of the questions that are specific to events that have just recently occurred in the house. Obviously, those can't be written ahead of time. So, I feel like there was a little bit of gray area there. And if I was them, I probably would not have released that video, because it might put Kevin, they might write different questions than they otherwise would have that might not be as in Kevin's wheelhouse and might make it more of a crapshoot, in which case Dimitri has a chance to win.
Yeah,
I wonder what the instructions were left by Kevin, like as in terms of the exact timing and release of this video, and what because he didn't know he was going to make it all the way to the end. But I'm very curious as to what was left by Kevin in terms of how this was to be played out.
I saw in the comments, the person running Kevin's YouTube account said that they were supposed to release it much earlier, but things they procrastinated, I guess. I've got to say, the people running, I mean, I'm sorry to whoever it is, you've been very kind to us, but whoever's running Kevin's social media accounts, I don't think they have the best strategy. They're blocking a lot of people.
Let's talk about that, because this is
that's not helping him grow his Twitch stream, He's got to grow that stream. He doesn't.
And to finish what I'm saying, and I think I agree with Brent here. The move is to release this video after Kevin wins right after Kevin wins the final 3 HOH, like, ha, this is how he did it, not right before. That's a little premature here.
Yeah, I will say. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep it. No, I've been chatting enough. Did you have Did you have something else you want to talk
No,
about?
that's good.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to say, because this was my one chance to communicate with them, is that I have seen the people who have been running Kevin's accounts. They haven't blocked me, and I think it's only because I'm part of RHAP. Like, because I've said some things on Twitter that weren't the most enlightening as far as Kevin's games go. I mean, I was a little critical at times, and I haven't necessarily been rooting for him. I think, like, I've seen people blocked for less. For saying less. Basically, I don't like that Kevin. He's a smarmy snake. Block. I mean, really? Like, I've seen whoever's running it. You need to let up on that. I know the game's almost over, but people are probably going to get a little more anti-Kevin as the week progresses. So this is not your account. This is Kevin's account, and he's actually pretty cool on Twitter with anybody. I don't remember him blocking anybody. He sure as hell wouldn't have blocked me. So stop it.
Yeah, Kevin's gonna get home and be like, wait, did you check and see if they like poker first before you did wait. That's my job. I need this.
I will say again, like, once the game is over, like, all of this sort of like angst and anger that I have as far as Ica not getting to the end of the game, I'll be like happy once the confetti rains down on him and he's declared the winner and it's fun to see him and he's crying. I'll be like, totally cool. So I'll want to be there to celebrate with him on Twitter. I'll totally own the fact. I mean, he knows already. I feel like Kevin already knows that I'm not rooting for him here because he was like, Brent is the villain of the podcast, and, so it's okay. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
if it does go down this way, do you feel like Karen is just going to be a black cloud over the entire like Niagara Falls post-finale party? How do you feel like that's going to play out?
I mean, she's been able to get along with Kevin pretty well in the house. I mean, like, it's sort of weird. Her vendetta seems to come and go a little bit. Like, when she's around Kevin, she's perfectly fine. It's not like she's being nasty right to his face up until the very end. They were talking on the feeds right before the feeds went black. Mainly, I think it's mainly because they don't have anybody else to talk to because Demetrius and Ica are in bed. But I don't know. I think that Karen will be okay. Like, if you want, we can take 30 seconds to talk about my little, Karen, please self-evict. I'll just say this. Like I said on Twitter, this is the same show that devoted a really serious segment and a lot of time to Cass talking Tim into falling on his sword so that she could advance in the game. So I didn't think it was out of bounds to talk about the fact that, Karen, who has a real vendetta against Kevin, to quit and just let Ica and Demetrius advance, because that would have totally screwed his game, because then he would have had to take a massive jury threat to the end. He wouldn't be able to take Karen. Now, Taryn has responded on Twitter and said, can you smell the desperation? And you're right, I was desperate. On the other hand, I feel like it's something that you had to consider momentarily. We don't know who was evicted here. And also, we also don't know who Kevin evicted. I know we're assuming it's Ica, and I'm 99% sure it's Ica. But when Kevin was talking about it, it wasn't as emphatic as I would have hoped it would be. It was, so I've got to evict Ica, right? Yeah, she's one of the more comps, and she's a bigger threat. But Kevin is a guy who likes to make big TV, and a part of him may just be unwilling to accept the fact that Karen is going to get $20,000 for being totally miserable and terrible to him. Like, I mean, if I took possession of Kevin's body and I was in the game for a second, and I had to deal with this woman the entire time, there would be, even though I know it would be a terrible move because you're putting her on the jury, you're removing a goat. I know all of that, but the sweet satisfaction of evicting her ass would be so good that I don't know if I could be able to pass it up. I really don't. And I'm hoping that Kevin is like me.
Well, yeah, I think Kevin is somebody who, like, he doesn't want to just make the easy move. He wants to make sure he's examined all of the angles. So when he's talking about, like, is there any reason why I should keep Ica? Is there any reason? He's really looking for one. He's not able to find one, but I wish Ica and Dimitri would be talking to him more, giving him, throwing things out, giving him something to chew on, because I really think that if anybody is capable of making a move to save Ica and to evict Karen, it's Kevin. So, I mean, throw stuff at the wall, right? Like, don't just, commiserate together.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they only had an hour because Arissa came on the feeds. They hadn't really talked to Kevin, at least that we saw, though the feeds were going on and off. But I don't think they had talked to Kevin about it. And, Ica needs to go to him and say, look, Kevin, I'm not a threat. You know I'm not going to win parts 1 or parts 2. You guys are going to take each other to the end. I mean, give the fans what they want. You're a Big Brother fan. You're a Big Brother player. You're a Big Brother legend. I mean, how cool this would be for the 3 of us to go to the end. You know, why make the easy move here? At least, you know, make it interesting for the fans, for the producers. The producers would love you for this. Arissa would go out of her mind. Like, you know, appeal to his ego there. I feel like there's a viable path.
I think you can even take it a step further. I mean, you can basically taste the money. You're at the end of the game. Like, you have to, like, get grimy. I'm sorry. That's what I would be doing. Have a giant fake breakup with Demetrius right in front of him. Ike is a great actress. Try it. Maybe it doesn't go over, but if it does, I mean, just try to sell it. Have a huge fight and then just distance yourself and then go to Kevin and say, look, we need to be vets to the end. I mean, really try to sell the fact that is the dream final 2 for this show, that you will cut Dimitri at 3 because you no longer care for him at all. I mean, there's plenty of outs here. There's plenty of ways that you can tie emotion and anger and all kinds of things into this to really sell a believable story, but they're just not trying, and I wish they would.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't think any of that would work. But
no, I don't think so.
You want to see it try. You want to see him try, right?
She's a great actress. I mean, I feel like you said, if anyone's going to buy something that's not in their best interest because they're too open to exploring all the angles, it's Kevin. And if anyone has shown their ability to sell a fake story this season, it's been Ika. So I think that's, you know, right. The odds aren't good, but
not good, Bob. Not good.
And I, you know, to your credit, Brent, I think also Ika should be trying to guilt Karen into quitting, right? Like, I mean, she is essentially pulling the reverse. Yeah, she's pulling like the reverse Tim, right? Where like Tim refused to quit for Cass and then quit like the round after. Karen was basically quitting by keeping Ika over Dylan, but then, or keeping Dimitri over Dylan, and now is like, no, I'm not going to actually quit. You know what I mean? It's like she's already gone.
Tim.
You're right. She's already gone like almost all the way there. Just push her over the edge a little bit. If she really wants Dimitri to win or you to win, then you know.
I think she needs to go at it from the standpoint of, you know, if you really don't want Kevin to win, but then Ika has to acknowledge to Karen that girlfriend, you're not gonna win. Like, nobody likes you. Like, he's gonna take you to the end, and you know, you'd be giving up $20,000 to do what I tell you. But if you really want to screw Kevin over and really want to hand it to him and make his path harder and throw a monkey wrench in his plans, like you've said before, this is what you need to do. Like, this would be like the move to end all moves, you know? This would be like hashtag scenarios. This would be great, you know? But I don't know. Again, they didn't really try that. And once Arissa came on the feeds, they only had an hour. I'm sure they're going to spend 45 minutes of that hour, you know, doing makeup and what all. So none of this is going to happen. I mean, it's just not going to happen because, and also Ika's the kind of person, she doesn't want to act a fool on the way out of her house. She seemed to me to be at peace with it. Like, she was here to push Demetrius forward. She was going to tell the jury all the stuff that they've done. Although I think the jury knows all of this. I mean, there's no point there's nothing to say to anybody. There's nothing to be done. It's just, you know, whoever wins part 3 is going to win the game. There's no jury management to talk about here. There's just not.
Yeah, it's fun,
kinda,
right?
It's
as opposed to last season when we were just like racking our brains. How? Where? If Tim loses, what happens? Oh my God! Now it's just like, this thing happens or this thing happens. We don't even have to look at who's in the jury. Like, we could just, I mean, we did. It's been done. We've established what we established, and now we can kind of move forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like
it's a fork.
It's kind of like Ika is finishing the game the way that she started it, where she was constantly going back and forth and fully believing it every time she went back and forth between two groups. Now she's been going back and forth between I want to win and I want Demetrius to lay down for me, and you know what, I'm leaving and I want Demetrius to win. She keeps vacillating back and forth because like last week she was ready to be like, yes, Karen, vote me out, keep Demetrius, this is what I want. But then when she saved, she saw a glimmer of like, oh, we can stay in this together. She was like, oh yes, and then she was mad at Dimitri for winning HOH. She was very mad at Dimitri for winning HOH, and they got into another huge fight over that. But then again, when Kevin won the veto, she was like, okay, I'm glad Demetrius, I'm glad you won the HOH, I'm glad it's me. It's like it's the back and forth. She's going out the way that she came in. So I know we've been talking about like there's no leeway in these jury votes, right? But there are some people that think that Karen has a shot against Kevin. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you count up the votes, if you have Ika, Dimitri, Dylan, I don't know who else. That's three.
Oh, I can tell you who they are. It's Dylan, who said he's never going to vote for Kevin. He'll vote for the couch before he votes for Kevin. That's what Dylan said.
Yeah.
She's got to have Ika and Dimitri's, and she's got to have like Jackie and Dre. Those are the 5 votes that she needs to get that are, somewhat in play for her, because the other 4 votes are so locked against her. I feel like, the other 4 votes are so in Kevin's camp. So she has to run the table. And I don't even really feel like Dimitris or Ika will vote for her. I know they love Karen. I think they really respect her, but they
love her, at least. Yeah.
Especially Dimitris. I feel like he will not be able to, like, if he gets beat by Kevin again for the 3rd time, I feel like he'll be like, he has to be the bigger man and give it to Kevin and just stand up and applaud him,
Yeah. I also remember, I feel like from the exit interview, it sounded like Dre had very little respect for Karen's game. And it seemed like, Jackie, I don't see her voting for Karen, especially once she get back with back with Netta in the jury house, who she was very close to. And Netta, is obviously not considering Karen over Kevin. Yeah, I think it's, you look at the possibilities, and they're not, William is going to vote for Kevin in that spot. Bruno is going to vote for Kevin, Cindy, Netta. It's not there. Dylan's the only one you can really sell me on. I'm
not kidding. The ghost of Dr. Will could come back with Dan and maybe Janelle thrown in, and William would still vote for Kevin. He's bitch is thirsty. Okay. So he's going to vote for Kevin no matter what. Lock that vote in. It's there. It's there. It's not going away.
Yeah.
Right, so one more opportunity for me to throw shade on William. By the way, I did find, this might explain a little bit. William's never had a boyfriend before. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that he'd never had a boyfriend before, because I remember what I was like when I had my first boyfriend, and I was sort of a crazy person, and I would have probably done anything that person told me to do. So I really understand where William's coming from. That being said, he still looks like a fool, because I know I look like a fool when I was behaving that way.
Okay, well.
It is funny now watching that Kevin video that they put out, where he's like, I'm definitely not going to get into any kind of a showmance with a girl. It's just going on about with a girl, and I'm just like, yeah, well, he didn't lie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So let's put odds on this. We'll do like a mini Stockwatch here. Obviously Kevin has gone way up, right?
Yep.
Kevin is now, I think we can safely say, the favorite to win, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Has Dimitri's chances increased, do you think? Because we talked about it in Toronto. Ika leaving actually is probably better for Dimitri's. It kind of saves him from himself if he was really planning on taking Ika. No, Brent?
Everyone's needed to be saved from themselves multiple times this season.
Yeah.
So
very
exactly.
Wild.
Kevin's win did a couple things. It obviously saved Kevin's game, but it also saved Karen, because Karen went from being eliminated at the final 3 to being a virtual lock to make the final 2 now and win $20,000. So Kevin saved Karen from losing $20,000, which I think is hilarious considering their relationship. Also, Kevin's veto win saved Dimitri. Sorry, I know a lot of people. Let me just. This is a parenthetical. Let me just tell people this, because I got asked this at Toronto. I do go back and forth sometimes with saying Dimitri and Dimitri's. What happened was, it was Dimitri for the longest time. Some of the house guests say Dimitri. Some of the house guests say Dimitri's. You all made me switch to Dimitri's when he wore that shirt that said "Dumb Eat Trees."
Yep.
And then ever since then, I've never been able to let it go, and I wasn't going to switch back. So that's why I do all those sort of things when it comes to Dimitri's name. Anyway.
Yeah, I use the S, but I noticed Arissa doesn't when we were at the live tape.
Right, exactly. So I'm closing the parenthetical. Starting a new, I see. I realized I do this. I have all these parentheticals when I talk, and I never close the parenthetical. So I'm closing it. I just wanted to see.
Well, it's funny because you just created a new one.
I know, right?
But
I'm closing that one now when I'm coming back to my original point, which was which was Kevin saved Dimitri's from himself, because Dimitri's was always going to take Ika to the final 2. I believe. I don't think he ever would have cut her. And now he can't do that. He can't look a fool, basically. So he's going to look like the hero if he takes Karen to the final 2. And it's just amazing how all these people were making moves that weren't really in the interest of their own game, but yet Kevin's comp wins have basically set everything right. Like we were in an alternate universe, but now we've come back to reality.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Dimitri's his chances have gone up, and honestly, in a weird way, Karen's position has also improved. I think it's like 0-0.
She can't get third now.
But at the very least, at the very least, she's making it to final two now, whereas before she probably wasn't or could have not made it to the final three. So in a weird way, everybody's stock has risen going into the final three.
Yeah, Kevin's like Robin Hood for these people, just like hooking them up with money they tried to not have, and they still hate him for it.
I think that honestly, it's more like 80% for Kevin. I really do believe that he's that big of a favorite. I feel like it's like 20% for Dimitri's. I really feel like 4 out of 5 times Kevin's going to win this part 3. That may even be a little bit low. If they are the kind of questions that I'm expecting, if they are, he is that big of a favorite to win because he knows what to look for. There are certain ways that Big Brother producers write questions, and he knows how to think about questions sort of like third-degree chess or, multi-level chess. Like, he knows, like, if they're never going to say, who was the 4th HOH? They're never going to say that. But they might say something like, who won their first HOH after so-and-so won their second HOH? Weird questions like that. You're like, when you have on the spot, you have to think of all this. Kevin's prepared for that. Dimitri's isn't.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go like 60-40 because factoring in the idea that maybe the questions aren't the same as they usually are. And what if they're really easy questions? Because Dimitri is good at these. If he can get a little lucky and they're easy and he's able to like maybe guess his way through a couple of them and then makes it to a tiebreaker, those are much more even fielded. So I think he does have a pretty decent shot, especially considering the fact that, Big Brother Canada could throw a wrench into this and change up the questions.
Right.
Also, like, how often should you touch the weave? That's right up Dimitri's alley.
I will say that season 1, they didn't ask questions like this either. And they have been going back through their old things that they've done on Big Brother Canada. They pulled a lot of stuff from season 1. So I could see them doing this and going back to season 1 and asking questions like, what did this jury member say when they came to be on the show? What were their thoughts coming into the game? You never know what Big Brother's going to do.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably have it about 60-40 and then maybe like knock off a percentage in there somewhere and give it to Karen. Just one little point. Cause you never know. You never know for sure with these juries. Yeah.
Times 5.
Yeah, exactly.
4. Probably deliberately.
What do you think, Alex? What percentage would you throw it at?
Yeah, I mean, and one thing we haven't talked about because it seems impossible is just that Kevin has to win part 1 or part 2. Because both, Karen would take Dimitri's and Dimitri's would take Karen. So that's, I guess, like a slight, but what are the odds Karen's going to beat Kevin?
Well, if it was
based on what we know them to usually be.
Right, exactly. If it was like it is in the United States and there was an endurance thing that Karen could actually win, then I might be willing to have this discussion. But I was reminded on Twitter that Big Brother Canada usually isn't like that. Usually part 1 is insanely physical. Like it was like Godfrey running with the sand up and down the stairs 5 million times. Godfrey won part 1, and then Phil won part 2 last year, I think, with the Eskimo thing where they had to like fill their water up and run back. So like it's always really physical part 1. Obviously, I feel like Dimitri's would probably win that. But even if Kevin, lost part 1 and had to go to part 2 against Karen, I don't think you could come up with a competition that he could lose against Karen in part 2 is usually mental. Like last year was, put the blocks in order when Sarah was winning or when she won Big Brother, but she didn't advance. It was that veto competition where you had to like put move the wheel around and put these different things in order. So I don't see any way unless endurance is involved that Kevin isn't going to make part 3. If he makes part 3, I think he's the odds-on favorite to win. Y'all better just, if you're like me and you've been loving Jamaica all season, you better make peace with the fact that Kevin Martin is like 99% to win the game. I really feel like he's just, because I also feel like the producers would love it. I feel like it'd be a great story for them too.
Well, now you're just jinxing them.
No, I'm trying to.
Yeah. So I have been seeing some people saying, maybe there is another twist here just before the end. Maybe there's a final three. Maybe there's some twist with the jury. I got a question from my own RHAP robot on Twitter that asked, could there be a shockwave that has like one-on-one jury questioning, changing up that format? Do we think there is another twist here other than this, quick eviction that Ica is going to be probably evicted in? Is there anything else that might come up? What do you think, Brian?
No, I don't. I feel like they would have announced it. Number one, they're not going to have another shockwave after they just had a shockwave. Like they're having a shockwave, quote unquote, that everyone expects on Wednesday
night. If they
night.
had something cool coming, right? They wouldn't call that a shockwave.
Right, exactly. And for those people who are hoping for a final three, that's not going to happen either because they've devoted 2 whole hours on Thursday night to Big Brother Canada. Now, if it was an hour finale, I could probably buy that it was maybe there's a final three coming. Maybe time is going to stop and they can't move forward and they have to have a final three. That's as far as they can go in this game. But no, I think it's going to be a final two because there's 2 hours to fill on Thursday. Wednesday's show is most likely going to end with Ica being evicted to an empty studio with Arissa, which is like
a damn shame.
Always the queen spot where Brittany and Tala and Ica and Cass, they've all been evicted in this spot where they go out.
All the exact same player.
Yeah, I know. Someone retweeted the Tala 19999. Why isn't this working? What is wrong? It was so great.
Yes.
Literally in a glass cage of emotion.
All on the same level, this queen spot. Okay, so I did get a question from Fenty Wap, who asked, who would you guys say is the biggest strategist in the season of poor strategy? What do you think, Alex?
The biggest strategist is Ica.
Yes.
I mean, she's played this very large strategic game. I think it's been very messy at times, but I think it's been very, certainly really entertaining. And certainly I think like her choice of strategic direction has dictated a lot of this season. She's definitely had a lot of pull over a lot of the votes over the course of the time. And I think the way it played out ultimately is, in many ways indicative of I think the triple eviction kind of, removed something that she was a real threat to her and Dre, I think in a lot of ways that wouldn't have been taken out there. They're going to vote out William there if it's just a regular eviction. And Dre is still like a big potential thorn in Ica's side who has a relationship with Dylan and Karen and these people. So, the way it played out was interesting. Certainly a few things popped in at key times to help her along the way. And, convincing Cindy to do something that was clearly against Cindy's own game at that moment, really opened up the playing field for Ica to be able to have a lot of control over a lot of the newbies and other players. But yeah, I mean, I think, definitely if you're talking about who had the most strategic influence over the course of the season, to me, it's got to be the person who was in with the 6 from the beginning and, managed to pretty much run the house with her showmance after the 6 was broken up.
I imagine you concur with that, Brent?
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. What was the question again?
Who is the biggest strategist in this season of Court Strategy?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of different ones. I mean, obviously, I feel like Ike is probably the biggest one, like Alex said. But Bruno was a pretty hardcore strategist. I mean, he was trying. He really was. I mean, Kevin's also been trying to be a strategist, even though he's utterly terrible at it at times. But somebody mentioned to me that they don't really care for Kevin's win. I think Alex, you even responded to this on Twitter because they said that Kevin was basically invisible for the first part of the game, and then for the second part of the game, he's just one comp. So that's not a game that's very it's very likable. It's not a very visually appealing game. And I think they intimated that maybe he had no social game or a non-existent social game. And I wouldn't agree that he had a non-existent social game, even though I retweeted that. I just feel like his social game hasn't been up there with other people because people see him as generally like a slithering snake. So, Kevin can be strategic at times, but even when he's not trying to be strategic, I feel like people still think he's trying to be strategic, and that's why they don't trust him, and that's why his social game is lacking at times.
I think it's interesting too that if that's a big criticism of Kevin, fair enough, absolutely, but that should be a criticism maybe of Big Brother Canada in general, because I think that you could make the same case about being invisible for the first half and having to win comps down the stretch at the end for Phil and Nick, for John, and for Jillian. So, it's interesting. I mean, I really feel like that is, a bit of a mold or like an established track at this point. For whatever reason, that really does seem to be a huge factor down the stretch in Big Brother Canada.
I will say that for people who are going to play Big Brother in the future, get people like Kevin out. I mean, people like Kevin who are just so good at these endgame comps, and even in the United States, the part 3 of the final HOH is a little bit iffy, but up until then, all of our comps are basically the same too. There's a lot of days and events and things you need to know, and what happened first, and who got this on this date. And, what day did this happen? Things like that, if you see somebody who is that good, and Kevin is that good at this type of stuff, you really can't allow them to advance past the first or second juror in the game. You just really can't. I can't even believe that Bruno versus Kevin was an actual discussion. I really can't, because they should have evicted Kevin in that spot if they had the chance, but he was saved by the veto. And I know, Taryn, we have privately talked about the fact that even though Kevin was quote unquote saved by a twist, that William had won the veto that week, and he would have most probably saved Kevin anyway. However, I do think it's a bit of a bummer that we don't know that for sure. We don't know that. We didn't see it happen. There is no universe where we saw it happen. So the universe that we have is another universe where the most likely winner of Big Brother was saved by a massive twist, and I don't really care for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my argument against twists. I'm glad you're on board now.
Yes. I'm on board for the current season.
Yes, when it doesn't go your way.
Yes, I'm happy to disembark when it suits me.
Yes. So, Alex, you brought up the double eviction when Netta goes home. I really feel like that was by far the biggest turning point in this season. I think we're looking at an entirely different season. If not only if that doesn't happen, but if it wasn't a double, because I think we agreed at the time, if this wasn't a double eviction, Cindy probably doesn't go through with this, right?
Yeah, and then Bruno wins the game and I win the draft and Taryn has to choke on that. But instead, nonsense, blasphemy, debacle.
Yeah. To Brent, to what you were saying about Kevin, I think part of the sneaky thing about what Kevin did was that he wasn't really winning competitions up until this last part. I don't think anybody knew how prepared he was and how good he was at these kinds of competitions until he started winning. As soon as he turned on, he won almost every single competition he played in.
Well, I knew. I mean, I feel like if I knew, they knew. Like, they had to know. The people, like Ika and the people who were left, I guess there weren't that many vets left in the game, and a couple of the vets that were left in the game were people that were on his side. So maybe they couldn't even get him out if they wanted to at that point. But I feel like I knew that Kevin's, to me, reminds me of Steve in the way that, he's always going to be able to turn it on at the end of the game when he needs to. He's that kind of competitor, and he knows the way Big Brother writes questions. So people ask me on Twitter, so you're hoping for a little bit of luck to be introduced into Big Brother? And I'm like, I mean, my head is saying no, but my heart is saying yes, because I really feel like a little bit of luck. I mean, Dimitri even said it on the feeds. He's like, at this point, I would take a chance competition, because he doesn't have as much confidence in his ability to beat Kevin when it comes to house trivia.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is also another part of being prepared, where like you need to be conscious of who's studying the most and who is up on their dates and their days and all of that, because especially if this happens, if we go through the season and these questions are unchanged and we imagine that they're going to be unchanged going into the next season, this is something that you really need to be paying attention to. We talk about how it's a social game, it's also a strategic game, and it's also a competitive game now. And I think that it always has been to some extent, but I really think that these competitions have been gamed. And if they stay the same, then you need to be able to game them too, or you're going to be really behind.
I feel like that this could not have worked out any better for Kevin, and I know that's laughable to say considering he's had no allies for the longest time, but he's been left alone for the longest time, where all he does is study. Ika and Dimitris were
a pig.
Yeah, exactly. Ika and Dimitris were just running each other ragged with, there are times where I saw Demetrius trying to study and Ika would come and bother him. And they'd say, oh, we need to study, but then they'd want to talk more. They were like, it was like Tim and Cass all over again. They were their own worst enemies. They didn't know to just say, okay, babe, give me a couple hours here. Okay, I'll talk to you after 6 p.m. Like, let me study here. I'm fighting for both of us. But he never really did that. And Kevin had all this time. And it was so funny. After he won the Final Four veto, he was like, not even satisfied with that. He was like, okay, won the Final Four veto. Tomorrow, back to studying, back to thinking of more questions that Big Brother could come up with. And, he's totally prepared. So if he doesn't win, it's not because he wasn't prepared. Something fluky just happened.
Kathleen in the chat says, it's hard to tell a super hot person who wants to make out with you to shut up and let you study.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, disadvantage to being a showman's, I guess.
By the way, I will really say that I was very proud of Ika when the Final Four veto was decided. Kevin won. I mean, I don't know what happened before the feeds came back on, but when the feeds were on, Ika was totally classy and fine, and they congratulated Kevin. They even laughed about it, they said. And she was, telling Dimitri, she was here for him, and she, basically she was trying to console him because I think he felt bad that he didn't win it for her. And she wasn't being like she was 2 nights previous when she was mad that he won the HOH competition. This time she was totally classy, and she really wanted Demetrius to know that she appreciated all he had done for her. And it was nice to see. A little bittersweet, but nice to see.
Yes. So going into this finale, we're looking at Kevin or Dimitri. Who do you guys think, Alex, we'll start with you. Who do you think would make for the better winner? Or even just, do you think there's a difference between the two of them in terms of the legacy of the season or their gameplay? Compare and contrast these two players here.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that a little bit earlier. And I think ultimately, as winners, they probably rank the same to me. On the scheme of Big Brother Canada winner rankings, because they did have very similar trajectories to get there. Obviously, people can argue that Kevin had more friends coming into the game, but certainly, they both needed to win more than once at key opportunities to win their way to the end. They both, won and were safe for multiple rounds all the way down the stretch. So I think, to me, I always like to think about, a winning game as most replicable. Is this a repeatable path for you to victory? And so to that end, I think, John still ranks number 1 for me because I think most of his work was done socially. He did win a bunch of comps down the end, but he didn't need to win every week, even down towards the, final 5 and stuff. So he probably goes first. Then I'd probably put either Kevin or Dimitri would probably go next. Just, for the simple fact that this is somewhat repeatable, I think. They really demonstrated that they could win consistently, and, they weren't socially horrific. So there's that. I think the step down from that is probably, it's probably the Pax brothers, I guess, simply because, again, somewhat replicable and a lot of, good social game at times.
I'm sorry, who?
A huge knock in the fact they tried to evict themselves. That really hurts them. And, a few moments where it really seems like, oh man, they shouldn't have been able to, let that go. I think I then put Sarah next, and Jillian for me has to be last just because it's completely you can't expect to repeat a juror voting against the person they want to vote for.
Well, it's also pretty rare for a juror to come back into the game at Final Four, which is the only thing that put her in that situation.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'm pretty on board with that.
But I hate saying that because it feels like I'm putting all the men above the women, but it's just like, man, these competitions seem physical, and it does almost seem like maybe it's a bit prioritized that these alpha males, if they're still in the game down the stretch, will be able to go on some kind of run. So maybe it speaks to taking out more of the marks pre-jury, which I'm on board with. Let's do that. Let's see more social game and less, just competitive, safety every week kind of thing. I'm totally on board for that.
I will say that I do feel like that the competitions have been disproportionately weighted towards the men. There are competitions that have come up that are, every competition is going to be somebody's advantage. I understand that. There have been so many competitions that have come up that, a man is always going to beat a woman on those, the 60-pound dummies that you had to pull out of the water and then carry back and forth and push over the edge. And there's so many things that are strength-based, or the things that that Kevin was when he was pushing the weights up. I still think he ultimately would have won that over Dre. There's just so many things that come down the stretch that are physical, and I haven't seen many. There haven't been any balance type of competitions. There haven't been any endurance competitions after the first one that they did. So I would have liked to seen one or two of those down the stretch, and I haven't seen anything like that. So I really, this is where I listened to Melissa with her podcast with Jordan on Wednesday night, and she was talking about how much she hated the veto competition because there was no way that Karen or Ike could win that. But it's not just that competition. I do feel like that so many of these competitions have been weighted for a man to win, and there's really no way for a woman to win. And that's fine if you have other competitions that a woman is more likely to win, but they haven't really done that this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Big Brother US, we get the endurance competitions a lot more often, and there are more competitions suited to women that really sort of counterbalances that. But I mean, looking at the stats for the Canadian Big Brother, the people with the most competition wins: Dimitri with 7, the Pax Bros with 7, John with 6, Kevin with 6, Emmett with 5, Andrew with 4, Gary with 4. It's only way down here that we get Jillian and Ashley with 4 as well. You know, it's really, really heavily populated by men. And if we're talking about a show or a game where these competitions really are becoming a huge factor, I think it is going to skew more toward men if they are, you know, more likely to win these kinds of competitions.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Talking about who's better between Dimitri and Kevin, for me, I agree with Alex. I think they both relied extremely heavily on competitions. I think Kevin is certainly more prepared for them, but if he loses to Dimitri despite being more prepared, then that doesn't really mean anything. So whoever ends up winning is probably the better player, because whoever's the better player is whoever's better at competition, since that's the main part of both of their games. So I think, you know, I think they're about even for me right now. And I think that either way, they're going to be breaking some big records if they win. And I think that's interesting at the very least. Kevin will have been immune for five weeks straight, which would tie Ian's record in Big Brother 14. But of course, one of those was a triple, which means he was safe for 6 evictions or 6, you know, eliminations straight, which is a record. But I don't know how much you want to like throw into that triple stuff. But either way, very impressive. Nobody has done it straight to the end in the way that Kevin has. Ian obviously was vulnerable at Final Four when Dan did his thing.
I agree. I was going to say that, you know, speaking of who would be the better narrative as the winner, obviously I feel like it would be Kevin, because he has, you know, he slayed his demon. He was the one juror that didn't fall prey to his fate from a previous season. You know, so many people repeated what they had done before, or they made similar mistakes. Kevin, you know, faced the triple and he beat it, and he made it to the end of the game. And if he gets there, people are going to respect that. So, and he also has the redemption arc. You know, like, this is what horrible fate befell him on the first time around, and this is what he did the second time around. Also, I was really struck when I was in Canada at the taping. Friends of Arissa Cox, I just want to say thank you, Alex, for getting us that.
Arissa played us so good, right? We're all like just totally in our pocket now. That was great.
We sat right.
She took good care of us.
Right next to Arissa's family, y'all. The Arissa's family is over here. And Brent and Taryn were right here. And Alex.
Dylan's mom right in front of us. The Toyota 86 right in front of her. It was a good spot.
Spot. Exactly. So what I was going to say was, how many people in the audience, all of the casuals, I feel like, are fans of Kevin. Like, they really are fans of Kevin. They're not even bothered by the whole Kevin and William thing. I feel like they feel like that was just a flirt mance. It's only the people like on Twitter and on Reddit who are bothered by Kevin. But all of the people in Canada, across the country, who are just watching, who are going to tune in on finale night, every one of those people is going to be rooting for Kevin, I feel like. Demetrius is the guy who you kind of don't know. Who is this guy again? Oh, yeah, he was the partner with Ika. You know, he doesn't have as big of a story behind him, so he would be the less investing, or he would be the guy with the lesser narrative, I feel like, if he became the winner of Big Brother.
Yeah, I do want to say, talking about our time in Toronto, I had the chance to complain to Trevor Boris himself about Mitch's eviction, and that was a beautiful moment for me.
You finally got it all out.
I wouldn't say I got it all out, but you know, I got to let loose a little. He was like, "Tell me, what do you hate?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, here we go."
I'm like, have you met? This is Taryn Armstrong. He is the queen of hate.
No, he was actually super nice. He said that he listens to our podcast. He had heard when I talked about that I felt like the producers had learned their lesson with the Karen fake out twist, and he was like, "Yeah, I agreed with you." And I was like, "Oh, there we go. All right, let's do this. Let's keep this up."
Yeah, but I heard you on that one, but I feel like that's really hard to replicate. Like, you can't keep faking them out. Like, they're gonna know it's a fake, don't you think?
Well, if you do it every single time, sure.
Right,
But
EDUK manages to pull fake stuff every season. You know,
All
the trick
right.
is just to pull so many things that like the double bluff is somewhere in the
Okay.
midst of all the cacophony. Like,
Okay, all right. Cacophony. I like that.
And I do like they mentioned in the interview that that we recorded in the studio. They meant Aaron Brock, the executive producer, mentioned that they did make a conscious effort to include less twists this season, which I think has panned out very well. When I was talking to Trevor, he said that he was very proud of the fact that the twists haven't screwed anybody's game over this season, which is I'm glad that they're proud of that, because I
Gray's
think
like, what? But
I'm very happy with the direction that they've gone with the season. I hope that they continue to do it. I really think that it has made for a very entertaining season, even if you're not happy with the outcome. I think that's more down to the way that the competitions are structured, and maybe there's a case to be made for let's emulate the US a little more and make these a little more luck based, so that we don't get you're not able to game the competitions quite as much.
Luck based, because then people have to depend on their social game. Then people have to depend on their positioning in the game. Then people have to depend on their strategy. If they can't depend on the comps, then they have to depend on other things, which are more interesting. And again, I feel like this whole the finale night is going to be such a bust, because we're going to be leading up to part 3, which will take place probably at about the 1 hour point. And then they'll bring in the jury, and the final 2 will be questioned, quote unquote. And we all know what's going to happen. I mean, one of the boys is going to take it. Karen's going to get second place money, and the confetti is going to rain down on them. So I just feel like that there's not a lot to be said here. There's no there anymore. With Ike out of the game, everything's been decided.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not as bad as twists. Like I'm not like thinking that this is the worst thing in the world. I don't necessarily need them to change this, as long as it's a regular thing. People know that this is a thing. You should be studying, and also if you are good enough socially, you should be able to say, well, if Kevin's going to win all the competitions, then I need to attach myself to Kevin. Right. So this is not nearly to the same extent that twists would interfere with the game. I'm not necessarily going to be like, we need to end the being able to study for competitions. Granted, like you don't want 5 people left in the final 5 just studying 24/7.
Right. Can I bring just something we haven't talked about, which I feel like is a discussion that needs to be had, is people like Karen that eventually, but not frequently, pop up in the game of Big Brother. The older person who's not going to win any comps, who goes really slow and steady wins the race. Not so much, girl. I feel like that those people are people, if you're a player, you need to confront the reality that person is going to take up a final 2 chair, and you're going to be evicted if you're sitting next to her. I feel like that those type of players need to be removed from the game quickly, unless you think you have their loyalty, and if you're not afraid of sitting next to them. There were times in Big Brother 16, just making sure I was right, that Derek could have sat next to Victoria and they would have kept him. So, if you're that good, then you can keep that crazy, the placeholder, the person, the pawn, but I feel like you really need to be wary of people like Karen, because once she made it past the jury stage, once it's the jury, you can just pencil her in for final 2, because why is anybody going to waste their HOH on her?
Yeah,
I do want to get into the argument of like ageism a little bit that I've seen cropping up a lot, because I do feel like a lot of people are now retroactively saying, well, Karen never had a chance to win this game. She's too old. Like, she was the older person. She could have never won. And I just vehemently disagree with that. Like, I don't think that's true at all. I think Karen's decisions in the game and her choices along the way got her to a place where now she is able to win the game. She doesn't evict Jackie. There's someone left in the house she can beat. There are certain choices that are made throughout the course of the game that dictate your potential for winning as the game proceeds. And if you're someone like Karen and you played the game she did, then there are there's only a subset of individuals you can be in that house, and you need to keep those people around. But you go back to like Poppin' Paul was never he's someone that like, it wasn't because he was old. He insisted on winning the first HOH, and then he had to be the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't, again, Christine was just like abysmal to be around. It's not because she's older than everyone else.
How did she get
just
cast?
Was utterly horrific to people. Like, anyone who's, hey, good morning, Christine. Go fuck yourself. Like, what? It was terrible. Like, so I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to personality. It's just too small a sample size for us to sit here and say there's not some 55-year-old that could come in and crush this game just because we've seen 3 that couldn't.
If you're not watching the video, you're really missing out on seeing Brent with his arms crossed going, abysmal. But yeah, I really think that you have to take, I think you're right in a sense, Brent, where you have to take these players out in the beginning, because that's the time to do it. If you feel like there is a person like Karen that you don't get along with, or that you don't think you can get along with, that's the time to do it, because you don't want to be making big moves, taking out other sides of the house or anything anyway. You want to be taking out a nothing person, making yourself seem like, not too threatening. You're not going after anybody in particular.
Right.
And if you let those people go too long, then you're not going to have the chance, because you can't waste a week on Karen if Netta just got blindsided. You know what I mean?
Right.
If your side just took a hit, like, and you go after Karen, that's like a Howie move where you're going after the wrong people at the wrong time.
Yeah. It drives me crazy that people always say that, evicting Karen is such a waste. I'm like, it's not a waste, because you eventually have to get all of these people out of the game anyway. If you're sitting next to Karen, you're going to be evicted. I mean, that is a massive threat in the game. And also, by the way, she's a really tasty final 2 partner. And if you want to be somebody's final 2 partner, you have to remove the option. Like, don't let somebody else take that option. You want to take it off the table. Like, make yourself into the person that wants to be taken to the end of the game. Just letting her advance this far into the game, I feel like was a fait accompli, and just, look, I like Karen. I think she's interesting to watch. She's been fun because she pulls crazy moves that I feel like I identify with at times, but it cannot be denied that she has voted against her own self-interest in the game. And I don't feel like that can easily be washed away.
I mean, I think Donnie could have won the game. I think Rennie could have won the game. I think there's plenty of people that were like older house guests, like removed from the majority by 20 years, that could have won the game because they were actually solid social players and weren't just like, didn't create vendettas out of nowhere, didn't say outlandish things that made people like not take them very seriously. I mean, there's 60 some days now of a body of work that we can look at. That's not just like her age coming into the house. I think that's a very, very just simplistic and unfair way to view what to me is much more complicated and nuanced.
Yeah, I mean, unless Karen just completely like demolishes Kevin in the final 2, or Dimitri's in the final 2 speech, and like wins over the respect of the jury at the very last second, I don't think there's anybody who can say with any credibility that she was a good player by any means. Just the decisions that she's made throughout the game, just not good, and it has nothing to do with her age, and everything to do with her decisions and her attitude.
Well, I do feel like that there is an element to it, though. I'll take the opposing argument that it's very easy to just look at her age and go, oh, she didn't do anything. Well, no, she did plenty of stuff. I mean, you have to look at the things that she did within the game. I mean, look at like Karen won 1 HOH at the very beginning and then nothing after that. Dr. Will won absolutely nothing in the game. So, you can't say Dr. Will did nothing in the game. Well, if you're basing it on comps, then you have to be consistent about it. You can't just say, well, she did nothing because she wasn't directing the flow of the game because she couldn't win anything. Well, that's not enough of a reason. I feel like you have to look at her strategic game and her social game and evaluate it from there. And if you still think that she did nothing, then okay. But I don't feel like Karen has done nothing. Is she a worthy winner? Probably not. But she's done more things than people will give her credit for. And I feel like too many people within the game of Big Brother currently, within the jury, and within the public sort of dismiss some of her accomplishments for better and for worse.
I think the time she's really put her foot down has been to make a move that is like absolutely not in her own best interest. The only time she's really insistent is to like do something that's going to hurt her chances of winning.
Right.
She has
or take out Dylan.
She has done plenty of things, most of which have been very bad. Very much like Sarah Hanlon in that way.
Oh my God, I don't know you. I don't know you.
I had an interesting run-in with Sarah Hanlon in Toronto.
Sarah Hanlon hates the two of you. I wouldn't want to be the two of you if you were on a subway with Sarah Hanlon.
So much.
She loved me. She came up
I was brokenhearted, man. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah. She read the two of you for filth. She said to me, those two seem to have already made up their minds. They seem to be very selective with their judgments when it comes to twists and who benefits from them. And I said, preach, sister, preach. I have to put up with it all the time. Yes.
Yes, because Brent is the most unbiased person of the three of us.
And she knew that. She said, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I said, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Great judgment. Okay. So
what can you do?
I think that's about.
I don't think I warranted that. I don't think I've ever done anything. All right, whatever. We're moving
I
on.
know Alex is trying to take her side too.
Yeah, Alex is bitter. I have to say, Taryn is sort of living for the hate, and Alex is sort of bothered by it.
I loved her in the house. I mean, she came into the house. She's like, I'm the adult Lisa Simpson. I'm like, I relate to this girl. This girl's awesome. And I literally was about to start a conversation with her where I said, you're totally right. I don't know what a BB Can 3 looks like without twists. I can't sit here and tell you you're wrong. And she cut me off and told me, basically walked away from the conversation.
What did she say? She said, yes, girl, bye. That's what she said.
More or less.
Didn't even want to listen to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was great.
Sad times.
It was
sad
so
times
good.
for Alex.
I wish you could have been there.
All right. So I think that's all we've got for you. I believe this is the last roundtable of the season. Fitting way for it to end, I guess.
By the way, I will tell you, just so I can crack my own face because I just cracked y'all's face. So I'll tell this story really quickly. It's a really fun story. It only takes 10 seconds. But we were taking pictures for the LFC after the show. We were taking all of these pictures, all right? And I was on the end. And then it was all the same picture because we were all in the exact same pose. But that was the subtext I was using to move us around. The real reason was this really hot guy came up and wanted a picture, and I knew he was going to go to the center because everybody was going to the center. And so I said, okay, Taryn, move over. I want to be in the middle. And what happens? That boy goes to Taryn's side.
He made a beeline for
Taryn.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Taryn, if you watch this picture, there's a picture of us, and the guy's on the end, and the three of us are like we cannot control our laughter. It's the one time. It's the one time that Taryn doesn't have a fake smile on his face. He's literally losing it. He can't control himself.
And then people in the line thought that was the spot they were supposed to go to. So everyone's going to the end, and then finally I'm like, hey, wouldn't you rather be in the middle? Come on. It's just that, it's your picture, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
So cute guy, you missed your chance there. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He saw more fun fields with you, Taryn.
Yes. All right. So do we have a hashtag for this episode of the LFC Roundtable Podcast? Let me know in the chat room if you do, and let me know, Alex and Brent, if you have any ideas. Brent, do you have a plug for RuPaul?
Yes. Liana Boris. I'm just kidding. It's actually Lita Brillman. Lita is bitter that people keep calling her Liana, but Lita is going to be guest hosting again because Liana is going to be away. So it's me, Mike Bloom, and Lita Brillman recapping RuPaul's Drag Race at right after this podcast. Actually, we're going to go tape it. I'm going to read them for filth because the reading challenge happened on RuPaul's Drag Race. So I just read the two of you. Now I'm going to read Mike Bloom and Lita. It's going to be very fun, and we're going to have a good time. So make sure to look for that on Monday.
All right, Alex, you've got something here?
Yeah, sure. Still, toiling away with some stuff over at postshowrecaps.com. We have a lot of fun scripted content over there. If you're into stuff right now, what we have going is Better Call Saul and The Leftovers, both good shows. So if you're into that stuff, if you're into any other kind of scripted TV or movies, there's been a lot that we've done that are in the archives and stuff. So feel free to go to postshowrecaps.com and check all that out.
All right. And I just recorded a podcast in person with Lita in Toronto about Team Ninja Warrior. We proved that I was really cool. So if you want to figure out how that happened, you can do that. We were interrupted by Brent and the rest of them at one point.
Oh, I was very, very quiet. Come on. Yes.
We could hear them screaming in the other room as they watched the previous night's Big Brother Canada. So make sure you check that out. There's probably very little in the way of Team Ninja Warrior coverage and more just me messing with Lita, as always. So I'm seeing Terranoia. I'm seeing Alex Bai. What do you think?
I liked Reverse Tim. That was good.
Reverse Tim. That's a good one. Yeah, I like that.
That was a good thing to coin, I think.
Okay, so if you want to contact us on Twitter, I'm at Armstrong Taryn, Alex is at Alex Kidwell, and Brent is at One Lucky Gay. For Brent and Alex, I am Taryn Armstrong. #Reverse Tim. We will see you next season.